Hi everyone, I'm Verity. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my first ever video. Today I thought I would just run through 5 of the books that I'm most excited about in 2022. Even though the year's already started and we're already into February, I thought better late than never, and I'll do a quick roundup of some of the books that I'm excited to see this year. So, the first book on my list is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I'm a huge fan of Riley Sager's work. I recently read his 5th book, Survive the Night, which I absolutely loved, even though it seems like a bit of an unpopular opinion on here. I just really enjoy the way he writes, basically. And I also like the fact that his books are very plot driven, really exciting, and they've often got a kind of nostalgic vibe to them. So in this book we're following a woman named Casey Fletcher, who's an actress, and looks like she's been through some kind of bad times in her life. Her husband's passed away and she's trying to escape some bad press in the aftermath of that event, so she goes to her lake house in Vermont. While she's there, she notices this really glamorous couple called Tom and Catherine, and she starts watching them and becomes increasingly obsessed with what they're doing and just generally watching them from across the lake. And she gets to know Catherine one day when she saves her from an accident. But then all of a sudden Catherine disappears and Casey has got to work out what happened to her, and if there's somebody dangerous, I imagine, that's probably after her too. So yeah, I'm excited for this one, and this book is coming out in the UK in June. The next book on my list is actually one that's already out. It came out at the beginning of February, and that's Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. Now this book is actually science fiction. It's set in space, billed as The Shining meets the Titanic, which really intrigued me because I really love the book The Shining, and obviously the story about the Titanic's fascinating to most people, including me. I thought I'd add this one to my list and it would be a definite must read. So it tells the story of a woman named Claire who's off out in space on a spaceship with her crew. I believe she's in a salvage crew, and all of a sudden they pick up a distress beacon, so they go out to investigate thinking maybe they could get some parts for salvage from the ship. They've not really got anywhere to be, so they think they might as well pick it up. And anyway, when they get there, they realise that the distress beacon actually came from a ship that disappeared 20 years ago on its maiden voyage, never to be seen again, and so they board it thinking, wow, that's the Aurora, that's the luxury space liner that disappeared. So they go on, but as you might guess, in a horror story set in space, things start to go south very, very quickly, and I imagine it'll be like a race to survive whatever they find on board. To me, being on board a spaceship and having this kind of haunted house-esque plot just reminds me of kind of the claustrophobia in Nick Cutter's The Deep, and also obviously the movies Alien, and I'm just really ready to read some more kind of science fiction set in space, so I'm excited for this one and I will be picking it up soon. Okay, so number 3 on my list is Clown in a Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives. Now, this is the sequel to 2020's Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar, and I kind of stumbled upon that one by accident really, because I was just in the mood for some horror, and in particular some slasher fiction, and I found Clown in a Cornfield based on some reviews on YouTube and didn't actually realise that it was young adult fiction. Not really in the age bracket for young adult anymore, unfortunately. I bought it before I realised it was targeted at teenagers and thought, oh, what the heck, I might as well give it a try. And actually I was really, really glad that I did. It ended up being one of my best books of that year. Basically, it's only really young adult in the sense that the cast is made up of teenagers. Anyone who watches slasher movies or reads slasher fiction will know that most things in the slasher genre have teenagers as main characters. That's just the way they are. So I think that needed to do that in order to work in its genre, and it ended up kind of being a story about teenagers rather than more a story for teenagers. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one, and was pleased to see that there was a sequel which will be coming out this year. So in this one we're following Quincy again. She survived the Kettle Springs massacre in the cornfield, and she's moved off to college in Philadelphia. But when she's there, she discovers that not everybody seems to think that the Kettle Springs massacre was a real thing that actually happened. So she's not obviously very impressed about that. But then the killer clowns turn up again, so that adds even more issues to her problems. So I'm looking forward to seeing what direction the author takes this story in, and if it's as good as the original Clown in a Cornfield, because that was just excellent, and I advise you to pick it up if you haven't already. Okay, so next on the list is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. Paul Tremblay is an author that I've really started to like over these past few years. I read A Head Full of Ghosts by him, and also Survivor Song. Survivor Song didn't seem to get very good reviews at all from the booktube community, but I listened to it on audiobook last year and really enjoyed it actually, so I'll be excited to pick up something new by him. I've still not read The Cabin at the End of the World, which I believe is widely billed as his best, so that's something I need to catch up on. But in the meantime, it looks like he's bringing out a new one called The Pallbearers Club this summer. This book picks up on the widespread trend at the moment for nostalgia in books. A lot of books seem to be set in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s, and that's absolutely perfect for me because as somebody who refuses to leave the 90s and early 2000s, it's just ideal. So in this story we follow a main character called Art Barbara, who is a high school kid, and he's kind of one of the uncool kids. And he sets up this extracurricular group to attend funerals for people who otherwise wouldn't have any attendees at their funerals. And during that time he strikes up a friendship with this cool girl who really likes the idea of his attending funerals club and seems to really like him, but she also likes some decidedly weird things like taking photos of the corpses and stuff. We've got this secondary character who's a bit of an oddity herself, and how Art interacts with her. And it also features the popular book within a book trope, because we then go forward in time from the 1980s, and Art is writing a book about his time at high school and this club that he set up. And all of a sudden, his friend gets in touch, contacts him again, and wants to be involved in the project, and she's thrust back into his life again. So it sounds like a really interesting premise for a book, and one that I'll definitely be trying to pick up this summer when it comes out. And finally for this list, last but definitely not least, is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Stephen King is just my all-time favourite author, so any time he brings a book out, it's a real event for me. This book tells the story of 17-year-old Charlie Reed, who strikes up a friendship with a reclusive neighbour called Howard Bowditch, who also has a dog, and he starts doing kind of odd jobs around the yard for him, just generally helping him out. Then all of a sudden Howard passes away and leaves him the keys to the shed in his yard. Throughout the book thus far, we've kind of known that Charlie's noticed the shed's got kind of weird noises coming from it. It seems all a bit odd, and so when Howard dies and he inherits the shed, he opens it up and discovers a portal to another world. In the publicity material, it's being billed as Stranger Things meets the Brothers Grimm, and with it being called Fairy Tale, it's kind of intriguing where he will go with that. To me, it sort of seems reminiscent of 11/22/63 in terms of the portal to another place and another time. In this respect as well, it kind of also reminds me of Black House, which was one of Stephen King's collaborative novels that I read a few years ago and really enjoyed. That kind of otherworldly portal to another place trope just reminds me of that, so I'll be really interested to see whether this book does end up being like those or not, and just how the story pans out, really. It will be a while to find out about that one though, because unfortunately Fairy Tale isn't set to come out until September the 6th in this country, so I'll have a while to wait for that one. But in the meantime, there's lots of great books to be getting on with, and lots of good ones to be picking up from my backlist too, which I'm still working my way through some of the shelves behind me. It looks like 2022 is set to be another great year for reading, so let me know in the comments which one of these you're excited about, if any, which books you're hoping to read for this year, and which books you're excited about. I'll see you next time in another video. Bye!